All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's executive committee meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 9:33 a.m. But before we begin, we'll begin with the territorial land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie First Nations. And ceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and you're currently situated on occupied territories. We're now going to get into the roll call of attendance, and when I call on your position, please state your name, your pronouns, and if you have any access needs that need to be met. So I'll start with myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Helen. My pronouns are she, her. As for my access needs, I'll be keeping my camera off today, and I unfortunately need to leave today at 10:30 a.m. to make sure I can complete some items that are due before the end of the day today. I have a long list of it. So at that point, I'll be giving chairing powers over to our vice chair of this committee, being Abby. All right, let's go over to our VP internal.
Hi, everyone. My name is Judith, she, her pronouns, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you, Judith. Over to VP Finance.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby, he, him pronouns, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. And our VP External.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shauna, she, her pronouns. I'm calling in from the stolen and unceded lands of the Semiahmoo, Tutti Nations, and all my access needs are met.
All right, thank you. Let's go over to our society staff. Let's start with our board organizer.
Hi, everyone. This is Ella, pronoun she, her, hers. My access needs are met this morning, but I will have to jump out for our monthly admin meeting at one point, in which I'll come back afterwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ella. Our building manager is not here today. So let's go over to our operations organizer.
Hi, everyone. My name's Aisha. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
All right, thank you. Our PRCA is not here today, so let's go over to our admin assistant.
Hi, my name is Fanny, pronouns are she and her, and all of my access needs are met.
Great, thanks, Fanny. And we do have, yes, that's right, Abby, Sindhu is here. So Sindhu, would you like to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I met everyone here. It's great to be here. My name is Sindhu, pronouns she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. So I'm just going to be shadowing Aisha for the next little while.
All right. Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Okay, let's go over to item 4 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. The motion reads, be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. There's nothing under here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, the consent agenda is carried. We're now going to go over to the adoption of the agenda, where the motion reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. May I have a mover for this motion?
VP Finance.
VP Finance moves, and someone to second.
VP internal.
Okay, VP internal seconds. I'm going to open the floor for discussion. And I'm going to start off with, okay, Judith will list herself and I'll list myself after that. Oh, then it's Abby and then it's me. So Judith, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'm going to move to amend the agenda to add a motion titled BA Hiring Committee Appointments.
Okay.
I'm going to drop the motion in the chat. It will basically read, whereas the student union building is shifting back to full capacity operation in the coming semesters, whereas there's a need to have the sub-staff to ensure efficient operations, whereas there's a need to hire 2 new building assistants, BAs, to maintain our operations. We resolved to appoint X and Y as employer representatives to the BA hiring committee. And yes, Fanny, it would go under new business.
Wonderful. Okay. So that is an amendment made by Judith. So Judith has moved this amendment. I'll second this amendment. I'll open the floor for discussion on it. Seeing none, we'll take this amendment to a vote. I'm going to seek unanimous consent for the amendment. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Okay, and this amendment is carried. Aisha wrote, can we have the same amendment for the MSAA hiring committee? I mean, I guess so. If someone can build that motion real quick for it. Okay, Judith's got it, okay. Okay, awesome. Let's go down the list here. Abby, you have the floor.
I retracted. You can go ahead first.
Oh, you've retracted. Okay. So then I will start with myself then. I'm first going to move to amend the agenda to add in a new section 6 titled Ratification of Regrets with a motion 6.1 that will read, and I'll just put this in the chat here. Hang on a sec. Okay. It'll read, be it resolved to ratify the regrets of Vibe of Aurora, VP Events and Student Affairs, and Nicole Kerrigan, VP University and Academic Affairs for the August 12th, 2022 Executive Committee meeting. They've both disclosed to me that they are not able to make it to today's meeting, being that they're either feeling not well or they have a final exam. So that's one amendment I want to make. That'll come right after the adoption of the agenda. Again, that'll be a section 6 titled Ratification of Regrets. The next motion that I want to add to the agenda will be under new business. So that will come right after Judith's amended motion onto the agenda. I'm going to add in new business. We can make that section 8, which will come section 7. Actually, no, presentations have to come first before new business. And I think Abby needs to amend later today a presentation. So that'll come right after presentations. Judith's motion will be the new 8.1. My motion will be the new 8.2, which will be titled as Implementing Safety Measures for Executive Office Space. And the motion will read, I'll put it in the chat. So the motion will read, whereas executive officers have experienced instances where their physical safety have been put at risk and or have received an alarming amount of death threats online, whereas the building team have already tasked their staff and coordinators to do frequent daily check-ins with executive officers working within the sub-executive office spaces to ensure everyone's safety needs are being met, be it resolved to lock the doors to the executive office spaces for a temporary amount of time where fob entrance is required to enter the space, be it further resolved to task the building manager, John Walsh, in locking the doors to the executive office space. So those are my 2 amendments. I've moved both of them. Can I have someone second these?
VP Internal.
VP Internal seconds. I'll open the floor for discussion on these amendments. Seeing none, I'll take this to a vote. I'll just seek unanimous consent. Seek unanimous consent on the amendments. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function. Seeing none, these amendments are carried. Okay, Abby, you've already listed yourself again, so you have the floor.
I think Judith was ahead of me.
Judith?
Okay, yeah, I'm going to move to amend the agenda again to add another hiring committee appointment that will read MSAA hiring committee appointments, whereas the SFSS is shifting back to full capacity operations in coming semesters, whereas there's a need to hire 2 new member sources assistants to maintain our operations, be it resolved to appoint X and Y as employer representatives to the member sources MSAA hiring committee. I can speak, I swear.
Okay, Judith moves this amendment. This will be added as 8.3 under new business. Would anyone like to second these?
VP Finance.
Finance seconds, opening the floor for discussion. Seeing none, we'll take this to a vote. Going to seek unanimous consent on this amendment. Seeking unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this amendment is carried. Okay, Abby, I think it's your turn now.
It is, thank you. So I'm going to move 2 amendments. The first amendment is a presentation. So this will be the new 6.1 titled Investment Manager Presentation, submitted by myself, and we'll present it to our investment manager, Rakesh Mehta. I'll put that in the chat. And the second motion, I'm admittedly I had it written out, but I've lost it. So I'm working on it from scratch. So I'll have to amend this when it comes to it. But this would be a motion under new business. 8.4 would be reimbursement of the VP external. But let me just throw what I have right now in the chat.
Okay, so just so you're aware, Abby, the section 6 is going to be ratification of regrets. So presentation will be section 7, and then new business will be section 8. It's all good. Okay, I can just read out the amended motion for the sake of accessibility. So Abby has here reimbursement of VP external. The motion reads, whereas the government of Canada has an allowance of 61 cents per kilometer up to 5,000 kilometers for reimbursement for work-related travel, whereas Ishana has used her own vehicle for the purpose of traveling for SFSS-related activities. Be it resolved to reimburse Ishana Baran for X amount of dollars for travel expenses related to SFSS activities from line item 720/20. Abby has moved this amendment. Can someone second this?
VP internal.
VP internal seconds. Opening the floor for discussion. Seeing none, we'll take the amendments to a vote. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this motion is carried. This amendment is carried. Okay. That's all the amendments we have, unless there's any more. We're going to go back to the original motion. Seeing no movement in the chat, we're going to take this all back to the original motion, which will now read, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. I'm going to take this to a vote. I'm going to seek unanimous consent. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this motion is carried. Okay, wonderful. We're now going to go over to the new section 6 of this agenda, which is going to be titled Ratification of Regrets. The motion reads, be it resolved to ratify the regrets of Vaibhav Arora, VP Events and Student Affairs, and Nicole Kerrigan, VP University and Academic Affairs, for the August 12th, 2022 Executive Committee meeting. I'll move this motion. Someone to second this, please.
VP Finance.
VP Finance seconds. I'll open the floor for discussion. Seeing none, we'll take this to a vote. We're going to seek unanimous consent here. Seeking unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this motion is carried. Okay, we're now going to go over to the new section 7 on the agenda, which is presentations. Abby, you have the floor.
Thank you, and I have to apologize, actually. I realized Rakesh is coming at 10, so I'd ask that we can just deal with the first or second new business items before we do the presentation. That would be wonderful.
Okay, would that require a motion, though, to have to go over to new business?
Yeah, I guess I can move to suspend the rules and consider be 8.1 and 8.2 before presentations.
Okay. So Abby has moved to suspend the rules to consider new business items 8.1 and 8.2 while we wait for Rakesh to join the meeting. So Abby has moved this. I'll just second this for the sake of expediting it. I can't remember, Judith, do we need to have a discussion on that or no?
It's the motion to suspend the rules is non-amendable and non-debatable.
Okay, all right. So we'll just go into it right away. So we got a mover, we got a seconder. So I'll just seek unanimous consent. Seek unanimous consent to just consider 8.1 and 8.2 right now. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Okay, so let's go over to the new 8.1. I'm just going to go over to my document here. Hang on. Okay, the new 8.1 is titled BA Hiring Committee Appointment. Again, this was submitted by Judith. I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. Okay. And the motion reads, whereas the student union building is shifting back to full capacity operations in the coming semesters, whereas there is a need to have the sub-staff to ensure efficient operations, whereas there is a need to hire 2 new building assistants to maintain our operations, be it resolved to appoint X and Y as employer representatives to the BA hiring committee. Okay. I'll I'll just move this motion. May someone second this?
VP internal.
VP internal seconds. Okay, opening the floor for discussion on it. Judith, since this is your motion, you have speaking priority.
Yeah, so we should probably just appoint people onto this committee. I think we discussed it last executive committee meeting. And I think it's probably time to appoint people onto it since everybody had time to think about whether they want to sit on the committee or not. So yeah, there are 2 seats for employer reps. I am completely okay with sitting on it. I'm just wondering who else would want to.
Great. Thanks, Judith. John expressed interest. Okay. Okay. Thanks for that note, Aisha. Abby, you have the floor.
I was going to say, considering it is a BA and that's John's team, it would make sense for John to sit on that committee.
Okay. So then that means technically then we would only need to appoint one person, one employer representative from here. If we're, no, 2. Okay, so John is already automatically in then. Right? Okay.
I'm gonna unmute just to explain. So employer reps are anyone from executive and including anyone from management. So the executive would have to appoint a collection of either just management or just executive or a mixed bag of one of each.
Okay. So we have two that we need to hire, but I think what I'm trying to ask here is, do we want to consider John as one, either X or Y from the motion? Or are we really looking to just have 2 executives be on it? Okay, Abby is saying yes to consider John. Okay. Okay. So let's just get right on into it then. I think what I'll do is I'll just call for nominations. Yeah, we'll call for nominations. It'd be easier if John was here, but he's not here today. And we'll just go into it. Okay, so this is the first call for nominations. If anyone wants to sit on this VA hiring committee, now is the time to list yourself. Okay, Judith.
Okay, I'll nominate myself. I can also try to call John if that works.
That'll be helpful. I'm actually going to ask a question here. Abby.
Yes.
Are we allowed, because again, John expressed interest, but we don't know if he can make it to the meeting here or not. So what do we do?
There's another way we could do this. We just want to avoid the nominations process. We could just amend it. But obviously, that's kind of putting him on the committee without really asking him, which is kind of sketchy.
Okay.
But considering he did express interest, it might be okay just to amend the motion and not do it as a election, just amend it. And then if it's like unanimous consent, then it's probably fine.
Okay. Judith, you have the floor. Judith, you've listed yourself.
What?
Yeah, I'm here. I have John on the phone. He said he's okay with it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. If you can get John to come into the meeting, though, that'll be very helpful as well.
John can hear you.
Okay. John, please come into the meeting if you can.
I won't be able to. I'm not like near a laptop or anything, so.
Okay. All right.
All right. Sorry. Thanks.
That's okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thanks, John. Bye.
Okay, so we have John, who literally over the phone said, yes, it's fine, and Judith. Anyone else? Second call for nominations. Third call for nominations. Okay, I'm just going to close up right now. And it looks like those two, John and Judith, have filled up. Yeah, that was pretty awkward. Yeah, John and Judith have filled it up. So we're just going to amend the motion now for it to read, whereas the student union building is shifting back to full capacity operations in the coming semesters. Whereas there is a need to have the sub-staff to ensure efficient operations, whereas there is a need to hire 2 new building assistants to maintain our operations, be it resolved to appoint Judith Nagy, VP Internal and Organizational Development, and John Walsh, Building Manager, as employer representatives to the BA Hiring Committee. I will move this amendment. May someone second this?
VP Finance.
VP Finance seconds. I'm going to open the floor for discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, we'll take the amendment to a vote. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, the amendment is carried. Back over to the amended motion. We all know what it reads, so I'm just going to open the floor for discussion one more time on the amended motion. Seeing none, let's quickly take this to a vote. Seeking unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this motion is carried. So Judith and John are officially appointed to the VA Hiring Committee, which is awesome. Great. Okay, it is 9:54 a.m. So we still have time before Rakesh comes in. So let's go over quickly to the new 8.2. Which is implementing safety measures for executive office space. Again, I'll put the motion in the chat here. Okay, and so again, 8.2 reads, whereas executive officers have experienced instances where their physical safety have been put at risk and or have received an alarming amount of death threats online, whereas the building team have already tasked their staff and coordinators to do frequent daily check-ins with executive officers, working within sub-executive office spaces to ensure everyone's safety needs are being met, be it resolved to lock the doors to the executive office spaces for a temporary amount of time where fob entrance is required to enter the space, be it further resolved to task the building manager, John Walsh, in locking the doors to the executive office space. I'm going to move this motion. May someone second this, please?
VP Internal.
VP Internal seconds. I'm going to open the floor for discussion. Okay, Ishan, I know you listed yourself. I'm just going to quickly go into it since I brought this motion to the table. This is based off of, thank you so much. This is just based off of the discussion item that we had at the last executive committee meeting. I just want everyone's physical space or physical safety to be ensured while we are going through these tumultuous times, and being that we've all received some sort of safety threat to us. I just want everyone to be safe while working in the office. And I think having the door locked for a temporary amount of time is going to be a good measure. And we can always come to another executive committee meeting at a later date to reassess whether we feel safe or not to have the doors open again. So that's what I just want to say. I just want everyone's safety to be ensured. I want everyone to come to work not feeling like they have to look over their shoulder every time they enter the subspace, because I know for me that's been the case, and I can only assume that might be the same for other executives in the room here today. Okay, I'm going to go down the speakers list. Ishana, you have the floor.
Yeah, Helen, I totally agree about everyone being safe. And my only question is, I know we're talking about like a temporary amount of time. I'm just wondering if we know, like, I'm not asking for an exact date, but are we thinking like a month, or like, is it like when we start feeling like safer? Is that, that's just my question.
Yeah, thanks, Ishana. You're right. It is hard to put a date down because we don't know how we're going to feel like within a month's time, right? So I was thinking that maybe we can come back to a later executive committee meeting whenever, like we'll just feel out the waters and the temperature between all of us. And then we'll discuss and see how most of us are feeling, and then go from there essentially. So yeah, Ishana, you have a direct response.
Yeah, thank you for answering. That's everything that I had, but thank you for saying what you had to say.
Okay, thanks, Ishana. Abby, you have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is a good measure. Makes it easier for me, honestly, because I try to be here as many hours as possible because of said threats, just to make sure if something does happen, at least like, you know, strengthen numbers. So this will be good for me because this means I can sleep in on occasion now without having to worry to be here for the sake of others' safety. So this is nice. Thank you.
Okay, Abby, thank you. Okay, so any more discussion before you take this to a vote? Okay, I'm seeing no movement in the chat, so I think we should take it to a vote. So I'm going to seek unanimous consent here. So seeking unanimous consent, if you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Okay, seeing none, this motion is carried. All right, we'll just notify John to lock the doors. Thank you everyone so much for this. Okay, we finished 8.1, 8.2. Abby, has Rakesh entered the room?
I don't see him. I'm going to call him. He should have been here by now.
Sure.
Actually, Ed,
Okay, Abby, you've listed yourself.
the next item, just to double check, is going to be the MSAA hiring committee, yeah?
Well, we would need to move to suspend the rules to have to consider those.
Okay, no, he's here. Never mind. All good. He's here.
Okay, Rakesh is here. Okay, before, I'm just going to say, I need to all good, Ishana, it's all good. Optimally, I do want to leave at 10:30, like what I originally said, but I know we have a few other new business items we have to take care of. So I'll just stay until 11, and then at 11 o'clock, I'll leave and pass all chairing duties over to Abby. So with that said, Rakesh, hello, welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Sorry, I just trying to get organized here. Just new laptop, and I realized right before the meeting that I didn't have Zoom installed. So just trying to get my bearings here.
Not a problem at all. You have a PowerPoint to share with us today, correct?
I do, yes.
Okay, amazing. I'm just going to make you, or just give you permissions to share your screen. So give me a sec here.
It should be okay, Helen, unless I messed it up. I think it should be fine now. Rakesh, do you want to try?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Does that work?
So
yeah.
That works. That works. So yeah, okay, now we're all officially on to the presentation section. Rakesh is here to do, was it investment?
Yeah.
Investment, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to confirm, do you see the screen that says quarterly portfolio review?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, great. So I'll begin by perhaps just introducing myself. It's been a long time since I've been able to meet with the group, and I know there's been quite a few changes as there's a turnover of the board usually on an annual basis. So maybe what I'll begin by doing is just give you a quick background about who I am and what we do for SFSS and how this all started. So I am one of the portfolio managers at Man City Investment Management, and I've been looking after the SFSS portfolio for the better part of, I guess we're in December, we'll come on to about 2 years. But the project started well before that. I'd say like probably 18 months prior to that. is when I first started meeting with the previous regime, and Corbett, perhaps, if anyone knows him, was one of the folks spearheading the entire project. And it was, the whole idea was to, with interest rates being as low as they were at the time, carving out some capital for more longer term investment mandates to keep the funds more sustainable over a longer period of time. And Simon Fraser went through a diligent process of a RFP where you would have interviewed a number of different firms to see what was aligned with the philosophies of your organization. And Van City ended up winning the contract. And thus we've been managing the portfolio now for, like I said, the better part of, well, December will be coming in on 2 years. My background is I actually went to Simon Fraser a very long time ago. I graduated from SFU back in 2002, so I guess 20 years ago now. And I've been at Van City ever since. So I've done a number of different roles within Van City, starting as a teller and working my way up through the system. But I do recall fondly the days at West Mall and the AQ. I guess those are all still there. I know lots changed up there since then, but a lot of late nights at inside the AQ and the West Mall. So hopefully you guys are all enjoying your time up there. It goes by quickly, and some fond memories up there, although it seems grueling when you're going through it. So what I wanted to do today was just give a quick update on the portfolio, and then just do a quick market update as well. So from a portfolio standpoint, this portfolio has always been managed in a fairly conservative manner. And so the page that you see here shows what the value of the portfolio was as of yesterday, on August the 11th. I just pulled an ad hoc statement here. And then, so it shows what the value was as of yesterday, and then also shows what the asset mix of the portfolio is as of yesterday as well. And this portfolio essentially is geared towards what we call our conservative income portfolio, which is essentially centered around about 65% of the portfolio is in fixed income. So that would be bonds, essentially, government, provincial, and corporate. And then we take a little bit of risk with about 35% of the portfolio in equities or stocks. However, those equities, for the most part, are focused on companies that pay us dividends and above average dividends. So things like Canadian banks, telecos, insurance companies. And then, so essentially it's been managed on a fairly conservative basis. The portfolio, when it started, was doing quite well, but over the course of the past year, markets around the world have struggled. So if you look at the 1-year return being around -6%, year to date being around -6.4. So I'll just kind of fast forward a little bit to what's going on in the markets and kind of what I think is going on. So essentially going into 2022, the economy as a whole was doing fairly well. Like, the economy was reopening as a result of the pandemic. People were getting back to work. People were going to go out and spend more money. People were starting to travel again and whatnot. And so we knew that employment levels were going to remain fairly high and that demand levels were going to remain fairly high. One of the headwinds we knew we were going to face going into 2022, and you may have heard this, was supply chain issues starting to affect inflation. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if anyone's gone out to purchase a car in the last little while, but essentially there's no cars out there. And so what retailers would do is start to increase prices in order for demand to find a new equilibrium to supply. And if for anyone that's done economics 101, essentially what that means is, to give you an example, let's say you got 5 cars in the lot, but 15 people that want them.
Hey, is everyone else still here?
Hey there, sorry, I think I bounced off here. They're not sure what happened. Am I good now?
Yes. Okay, there we go. We had a frozen version of you there for a couple seconds as well,
Okay.
but you're back.
Apologies for that. That's so I'm not sure where I got stopped there, but I was chatting a little bit about my car lot example with regards to inflation. So essentially, what I was saying was, you have 15 cars.
Okay, you're not sharing anymore, so you might want to do that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Where my example was, you have 5 cars in the lot, but 15 people wanting them. You're not going to sell the first 5 cars to the first 5 people that walk in the door. What you're going to do is raise your prices slightly. And so retailers are perhaps raising their prices by 5%. And instead of 15 people wanting vehicles, now there might be 10. Well, demand is still outstripping supply, so you raise your prices even a little bit more. And you keep raising your price to a point where demand now meets supply and you have a new equilibrium. And essentially that's been happening in our economy throughout the many different sectors, whether it be cars or appliances or phones or travel. And so we knew this was kind of an issue going into 2022. We knew that central banks would probably start raising interest rates from the low levels that they had them at. But what we did not anticipate, and most economists didn't, was Russia invading Ukraine at the end of February, which sent oil prices skyrocketing, which then so many different things in our economy. Like if you think about transportation costs for moving goods around the world, if you think about your Amazon driver delivering goods to you, if you think about food getting sent from farms to your grocery store, the cost of all of that goes up. And in addition, Russia and Ukraine control about 1/3 of the wheat supply in the world, which sends food prices quite high as well. So inflation started running at basically 40-year highs. We haven't seen this type of inflation since the early 80s. And so what that prompts central banks to do is to be even more aggressive with interest rate hikes. And so if you're raising interest rates, it means that more of my money is going towards my obligations, my loans and mortgages, which means I have less money left over for other things. I'm going to pay my TELUS bill, but I might wait to buy that next iPhone. I'm going to buy groceries, but I might not go out to eat as much at the restaurants and whatnot, or I might delay that vacation. I might delay that home improvement project and buying goods from Home Depot and things like that. So we saw a pretty sharp sell-off the first 6 months of the year through all sorts of markets. So the US market, the S&P 500 was down about 20% at one point from its recent high. The NASDAQ, which is tech heavy, like if you think the things that fell off the most, I kind of call the fun stuff, the technology shares, the consumer discretionary would be like names like Aritzia, Lululemon, Nike, because that's where you spend money after your obligations are taken care of. And so, like I said, the first 6 months of the year, quite a bit of a sell-off based on aggressive policy from central banks around the world, but especially here locally, Canada and the US have been quite aggressive with interest rate hikes. How that affects your portfolio in particular is that bonds make up 65% of your portfolio. And so you can see this red and blue line. The blue is the US 10-year yield. The red is the Canadian 10-year yield. And you can see how rates 2 years ago, as a result of the pandemic, were down right around 0.5%. And they've risen up to about 3% now. And you would think, well, if rates are 3% now, isn't that a good thing versus 0.5% 2 years ago? Over the long run, it is a good thing. But for anyone that's done any finance courses, when bond yields rise, oh, I got cut off. Am I still there? Sorry, Mike. I'm getting this ads. Abhishek, am I still there?
Yeah. You're still here. You're still here, Ratesh.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. When bond yields rise, bond prices actually come down. And I'll say that again, bond yields rise, bond prices down. So I'll give you a real simple example. And I'm just going to shift back to the SF portfolio here for a second here. You can see here in your portfolio, we're managing 2 bond funds for you. And you can see that there's a pretty significant realized loss over here of around $300,000. Whereas on the stock side, if we were to add all of these up with the different banks and holdings that we have, you've actually got a bit of a gain over here. Despite the markets being down quite considerably, we've done okay on the stock side of things for you guys, but it's the bonds that are really pulling the returns down. So why is that? So I go back to, we got into a relationship over here back in December of 2020, when bond yields were fairly low, like somewhere between 0.5% and 1%. And now they're paying closer to 3%. So what happens is, let's assume that instead of a typical bond, you were to buy a term deposit back here that was paying 0.5%. So if you bought a 5-year term, you would have put in $100 at the beginning of that term, and you would have known that you would have got, let's just say it's a 5-year term, you would have got 50 cents every single year on that $100 investment. And then at the end of that maturity, you would have received your $100 back. A bond works exactly the same way, like that term, if you close your eyes from the beginning to the end. And you know that in that term deposit example, if rates went up, you really don't have a lot of options. You just have to wait until maturity to be able to cash things out. Like I said, a bond works exactly the same way, except a bond is always liquid. I can sell a bond any day on the market if I need to. So if you came to me and said, Rakesh, we need a bunch of cash, I'd have to sell some of your bonds off. But if new bonds are paying 3% and the ones that you have are paying 0.5%, would someone want to buy that bond off you? The answer is no. So what you would do is you would lower the price of your bond to a point that I become indifferent. So in that example of the $100 investment, yields have gone up to 3%. Perhaps I offer you $90 for that bond instead. So I buy it off you for 90. I then agree to collect the 50 cents for the remaining period of that bond. But then when that bond matures, it's going to mature at $100, right? So I pick up that extra 10 bucks. And essentially, the value of all your bonds are down if I were to sell them today. The beauty is that as these bonds mature, I know they're all going to mature at par. So they'll mature back to what I purchased them at. And so that negative that you see on the bond side of the portfolio will eventually start reversing itself out as we get closer to maturity. The other beauty with a rising rate environment here is that as we have bonds coming due, we're going to be able to reinvest those at higher interest rates over time. I'd say about 1/3 of the bond portfolio is coming due in the next 3 years. So as your bonds come due, like I said, instead of renewing them at 0.5% or whatnot, we're going to be renewing them closer to 3 or 4%. So if I go back to here, it shows what your yield of the portfolio is, around 2.44%. If you came to us with brand new money today, that yield is closer to around 4%, actually a little higher than 4%. So what that tells me is that as bonds that you have inside this portfolio start rolling over, this yield is also going to go up, which means the income that we're deriving from them goes up, and this negative part will eventually reverse out. Does anyone have questions on that? Because it is a fairly complicated methodology versus stocks. I always find that bonds are actually more confusing than stocks are. We're good? Okay. And so then a lot of my clients are asking, okay, well, go ahead, Abhishek and Helen.
Sorry, I'll defer to Helen.
Okay, yeah, sorry. this presentation is really cool. So thank you so much, Rakesh. I'm going to
No
admit
problem.
here, though, I obviously don't have the expertise that you have when it comes to financials. So I just wanted to ask, like, what are the financial implications right now, like based on our portfolios? Like what are the based on everything that you're telling us right now, what are some of the financial implications that that are happening to our investments right now?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so if you were just, if the short answer is that the portfolio has a negative value from where we originally invested. Okay, now that is holding up the yardstick from a 18-month basis. And when we originally started the portfolio, the whole idea is that this is something that we've carved out that can be invested for 5, 10, 15 years so that it can continue to grow over a long period of time. So the short-term implications is obviously it's down relative to where we started from. And a lot of those things were out of the control of any fund manager. Like, I'm not just saying just us, but anybody that has investments over the last year would have been down based on what's happened out there in the market. The key being is that if you're able to tolerate that volatility and we're able to stick to our disciplined approach and invest the money for the longer run, what should occur is that markets will eventually start to and the total income that will start deriving from the portfolio should start increasing as well as we're rolling over the bonds at higher interest, at higher yields. Does that answer your question?
Sort of. Sorry, Rakesh. I don't know if it was just my end, but it was hard to hear you, or it was just hard to understand you, because I think maybe your internet was like cutting in and out, or maybe it's on my end. Yeah.
Oh, was it? I apologize. Okay, I'll maybe I'll just quickly start again. I was just saying that the short-term implications are that obviously the portfolio over the last 18 months is down from where we started. And when we first started, the economy was in really good shape. We were coming out of the pandemic, and the larger than expected inflation was not necessarily on the horizon. So we're going through a period here where there's a little bit of instability happening in the market, or at least it has happened over the last 6 months. And I'd say that if we're able to tolerate the volatility that we have seen, and we're able to invest for the longer term, which was the original plan, then what should occur is over a period of time, the market will start to rebound and will actually start to generate higher income out of the portfolio because yields have gone up so much. And we'll be rolling over 0.5% bonds into 4% bonds. So over the longer term, it should be a really good thing for the portfolio, but obviously that hasn't been the case in the short term.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Rakesh.
You're welcome. And Abhishek, you had a question as well?
Yeah. So this might be a little bit speculative, but I wanted to ask to see if you'd have an answer.
Sure.
So looking forward in the economy, it's kind of uncertain what's going to happen. It's likely we're still going to kind of stay in a recession for a while. How do you think that's going to impact the bond prices going forward?
It's a great question. So what we have seen actually in the last 6 weeks or so, actually, let me take one step back. So the whole idea with being quite aggressive with interest rates is to essentially bring inflation down, right? We want to get inflation back into a target of what we call, Bank of Canada's target is 2%. It peaked at around, in the United States, it was 9.1% in June. we started to see some anecdotal evidence that inflation was falling a little bit. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Oil prices went from $130 a barrel down to less than 100. You might see gas prices have gone from $2.30 a liter back down to about last time I checked, it was like $1.84 or $1.86 or so. So that's kind of come down a little bit. We've seen, if anyone tracks housing, we're not seeing those $200,000 and $300,000 over asking and multiple offers. That's staying on the market a little bit longer. As a result, lumber prices have come down. So these are all kind of inputs into inflation. This week on Wednesday, actually, the US announced its July inflation numbers. So remember when I said June was 9.1% year over year? We were expecting July to be around 8.7% year over year. It actually came in at 8.4. So we're a long ways away from getting down back to 2%, which is where we want to be. But we're starting to see evidence that higher interest rates are impacting people's purchasing decisions, which is starting to bring prices down. As a result, in the last 6 weeks, the markets have rebounded quite significantly. And even if I look at the SFSS portfolio here, you can see here that from a year-to-date standpoint, we started the year at 5.2. This current quarter here, we were actually down to 4.7 as of June the 30th. As of yesterday, that's climbed by 200,000 up to 4.9. So we're not quite back to where we were at the beginning of the year, but we're kind of starting to see evidence that the market is starting to rebound. The key here, Abhishek, is that we want to see theoretically a technical recession, which is essentially 2 quarters of negative growth, with the assumption that demand remains at relatively elevated levels and that employment remains at high levels. Like right now, unemployment is the lowest that we've ever seen, which means anyone that wants a job has a job. What we don't want to see is that interest rates go up so much that folks fundamentally start making different purchasing decisions, which leads to a fundamental lowering of demand over a longer period of time. Because if that happens, then that's when employers will start making decisions as to how to cut costs. I'll give you the Apple example again, right? If Apple thinks, despite higher interest rates, that over a longer period of time, people will still be able to purchase iPhones. But if interest rates remain relatively high for a long period of time and people just can't afford it, well, they're not going to buy as many iPhones. Well, then what's Apple going to do? Apple will decide well, we don't need as many workers then. We don't need to, instead of employing 100 people per store, maybe we only need 75. Well, then if unemployment starts to rise, that fundamentally changes things, right? Because there's less people working in the economy, which means they have less money to spend. So far, what we're seeing is inflation starting to come down, demand still remaining relatively high, and unemployment remaining relatively really low. For me, my cautiously optimistic take is that we need workers. Like if you look at the airports, you look at the restaurants, you look at manufacturing, they're clamoring for employees. I mean, like your generation is in great shape because you'll find a job very easily because there's so many jobs out there looking for employment right now. And there's not enough people out there that are able to fill those jobs. So as long as unemployment stays low, I think we're in for a bit of a soft landing here. And I wouldn't get too hung up over the recession word. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see unemployment numbers start to rise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think that's fairly clear.
And I'll just share one other last little bit where it comes to volatility in the markets, because it can be scary at times, but it's absolutely normal for what we've gone through. So this chart here is the S&P 500, which is basically the US broad index. The black bars are essentially the annualized returns. So essentially, how did the US market do between January to December every single year going back to 1980? And then the red dots are what was the drop in the market at some point that year. So if I were to add up, so I'll give you the example of 1980 here. At some point, the market dropped by 17%, but at the end of the year, January to December, it was actually up 26. If I were to add up all of these red dots here, the market typically drops 10% or more about 50% of the time. 22 out of these 42 years, the market dropped by 10% or more. So kind of flip a coin and it'll tell you whether we're going to have a volatile year like this year or not. But only in 9 of those 42 years, or let's call it about 25%, did the market actually stay negative at the end of the year. And really, it was only 2 time periods, once in 2008, when we had the financial crisis, and then once here, this 3-year period in 2000 when the tech bubble bursted, followed up by 9/11, did the market really stay low for a long period of time. Typically speaking, when we go through years like we're having this year, it's a short period of time that it lasts, and the following subsequent years are usually fairly healthy for the stock market. So when we're going through periods like this, it can be unsettling, but it's entirely normal. The key is to stick to your high conviction ideas, to stay balanced and diversified, and to make sure that you stay invested, because the market can bounce back up very quickly, like we've seen in the last 6 weeks. And if you miss those time periods, you'll never make your money back. And so I'm just gonna unshare my screen here, if I can figure out how to do that. Sorry, we don't usually use Zoom. We're more using Microsoft Teams. I know how to use that much better. Well, I'll just leave it at that. I can't quite figure out how to unshare my screen here.
Rakesh, it should be at the bottom. At the bottom of your screen, it should say stop sharing.
Yeah, when I started sharing it, oh, here we go. Hang on. It's on this other, there we go. Figured it out. Thank you for that, Helen.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so does anyone else have any questions? I wanted to touch base because the board is fairly new. The only last little bit that I had for you guys is I had sent Abhishek a spreadsheet, because there are new signing officers for your board. And in order to get you all set up on our system, we would need a fair amount of information. And once I have that, your IDs and the information, what I'll be doing is sending out a document package for you to sign via electronic signature. And we use DocuSign for that because right now, technically speaking, probably even shouldn't be talking to you about any of this, because we don't have you listed as any signing officers on the investment system. But so if we can take care of that as soon as possible, that would be great. And sorry, go ahead, Abhishek.
Yeah, I was going to ask around our current portfolio. So like you said, excuse me, I believe you said it was 65% bonds and such, and then 35% more volatile kind of stocks and all that. Based on how the market is going, like you said, there is potential for stocks to start shooting back up very quickly. Mm-hmm. But the bond rates are also fairly high right now, so it would make sense to purchase at this point because we'd be getting a really good interest rate. What's your take on our kind of mix right now? Do you think it's a fairly safe mix? Do you think we're playing it too safe? Do you think like What's the risk reward here, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so when we had first set this up, my inclination for more for the other student societies that I manage money for, and I manage money for all the other ones as well that you can think of, as well as one of the referrals for you guys was the Graduate Student Society of SFU. Generally speaking, a little bit more of an equity weight, typically speaking, is more desirable for a portfolio like this, where the intention is more longer term. And I had suggested more of a closer to 45 or 55% equity weight. I think over the longer run, that would do better. However, the original inclination was that they wanted to keep the portfolio quite conservative and quite safe. So if there is an appetite for being able to accept a little bit more volatility, I would certainly suggest moving up the scale to about 45% equities. However, that is something that would need to be discussed by the board, and your investment policy would need to be adjusted before being able to do that. Because right now, your written investment policy only allows for a 35% target, and I believe a 40% max.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Because I was going to ask the same question as well, Rakesh. So I'm glad Abby asked that.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in that, it's probably something that you could, I mean, it's something that you'd have to discuss as a board, right? I don't know, Abhishek, if you have the current investment policy of SFSS. If not, I could forward on what I had received from you guys, and you can have a look to see what the ins and outs of all that is.
Yeah, if you could forward that to me, it'd be much appreciated. Okay,
I'll send that to you.
I did also have one more question, if that's okay, Helen.
Sure, go for it.
So, like you said, right now, our maximum kind of cap on our stocks and such is 35%. And you said long term, it makes more sense to have the higher stock equity at like 45%-ish, you said. But you also did mention the risks. So I kind of have an idea, but just for those who may not be as financially inclined, what would the risks specifically be in taking a higher percentage of stocks versus bonds? If you could just explain that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I kind of think of it, I'll use a sports analogy for anyone that likes sports. Your bonds, like if you think about any sports team that's out there, that your championship team, they typically have a nice balance of defensemen and forwards. Your bonds are your defensemen. They're there to protect your goal. When things go crazy out there in the economy, the bonds will essentially protect you from large and significant downturns. And, like I said, your portfolio is down around 6%. The overall stock market is down about 20% from its high in January, right? So those are your defensemen. However, if your portfolio has, a bigger weight towards defensemen, it's fine. You don't get a lot of goals scored against you, but you likely still lost the game 2-1 or 1-0. What you need is some forwards for you to score some goals for you. And that's your stocks typically, right? They're the ones that are going to grow at a higher pace and give you a rate of return that's better than what bonds would provide. However, if you got your portfolio too much in stocks, when we do go through periods like we went through the last 6 months, now all of a sudden you've let 7 or 8 in, right? And this is why I believe in more balanced portfolios for organizations such as yours. And that's why I think, perhaps a slightly heavier weight in equities would do better on the long run. However, what that could potentially mean is essentially when the market does really well, your portfolio would do better than what it's doing right now. However, when the market goes down, you could potentially have a greater negative return in that time period. Now, that being said, also, like when we talk about risk, I like to separate the word risk from volatility. I'll give the example of the Royal Bank. I know that the price of Royal Bank is going to go up and down and sideways over a longer period of time. Why we own the Royal Bank is A, it's been around forever. B, it's a well-run organization. C, we think that it'll continue to be around for a long period of time and has the ability to generate earnings. And D, it pays us a very nice dividend, currently at around 4%. So I know that by owning the Royal Bank, likely 5 years from now, it's going to be worth more than it is today. But even if it goes down before it goes up or up before it goes down, we're getting paid to own Royal Bank at around 4%. That's just one example. But we also own things like TELUS in your portfolio. We own things like Amazon and Apple and the Bank of Nova Scotia and Canadian Tire. And so you diversify your portfolio out. So you own a lot of different good companies that are all going to go up and down in various capacities, but they're all paying us a dividend along the way. And that the hope is that, 5-10 years from now, they're worth a lot more than they are today, right? You're owning quality businesses, which is very different from owning the market. And so that's different from risk, I think, right? I know Royal Bank's going to be volatile in terms of up and down, but do I think Royal Bank's going to cease to exist a year from now? The answer to that's no. It's going to be here. Like, we're not buying cryptos and cannabis companies and things that my brother-in-law said it's 50 cents today and hopefully it's $2 by the end of the month. Like, that's what I call risk. We're not owning any of that in your portfolio. We're owning things that are, big global powerhouses.
So just to clarify, sorry, Rakesh, and I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up a lot of space. I just want to make sure everyone's as clear as a crystal on exactly where we're at. You're saying that even though our equities investments are more risky than bonds, there's only a certain level of risk because we're investing in reputable sources that aren't going to be going anywhere over the next 10, 20, 50-ish years. Exactly.
And I'd say they're more, I'd use the word that they're more volatile than bonds, right? Not necessarily riskier, but I know risk, that word risk gets thrown out a lot when we're talking about these types of things.
Thank you.
So I will leave it at that if there's no other questions. Very nice to chat with you folks. Good work on your end. Good luck with everything. I'm open to these types of meetings. Like, typically speaking, it's good to have this at least on an annual basis so you guys have an idea of what's going on with the portfolio. I realize then after a year, I think a lot of you move on to other things, and then the new board comes in. So I'll probably be having this kind of conversation again with a new set of folks next year. But just wanted to say thank you for giving me the time. We'll continue working hard to manage the portfolio. If you have any questions ever, feel free to send me an email or give me a call. And we'll just leave it at that for today.
Yeah, thanks, Rakesh. I was going to say, just for transparency, sorry, Helen, I know you were going to say something. I'll probably be checking with Rakesh semesterly. So Rakesh, I'll probably talk to you twice more about this, once in the fall, once in the spring, just to make sure everything's all good.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Abby, you read my mind, so thank you. And thank you, Rakesh, for coming in and giving this very thorough presentation on our investment portfolio. This is great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, good stuff. And Abby, you'll give me those that information, right? So you'll hear from me pretty soon once I have that info, so I can get you guys all set up as signing officers.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Awesome. That was a great presentation. Very eye-opening too. We need to get back to new business. So, question for either Abby or Judith, as for, I need some help with Robert's rules here. Can we just go straight to new business, or do we need to bring in a new motion to go back to new business? Yeah, Abby, direct response.
Yeah, you can just go into new business. We suspended the rules to consider 8.1 and 8.2 before presentations, and we've already done that. So yeah, we can just keep moving on.
Okay, amazing, awesome. So let's go over to the new 8.3, which is the MSAA hiring committee appointment. So give me a sec here. So we're officially back on the new business. We're looking at 8.3. I'm going to drop it in the chat here. Okay. So the motion reads, whereas the SFSS is shifting back to full capacity operations in the coming semesters, where there is a need to hire 2 new member services assistants to maintain our operations, be it resolved to appoint X and Y as employer representatives to the MSAA hiring committee. Would anyone like to move this motion?
VP External.
VP External moves, and someone to second.
VP Finance.
VP Finance seconds. Okay, we're going to open the floor for discussion. Ishana, you have the floor.
Yeah, I can sit on this hiring committee if anyone else doesn't want to.
Cool. Okay, so Ishana, put herself down. Okay, Ella wishes to as well. Okay, Abby, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll retract. I guess I was going to defer if both, if no one else did, but Ishana and Ella are listing themselves.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Like, the opportunity is still there if anyone else really wants to sit on this. Transition Sindhu if interested. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, I'll put Sindhu down. Okay. Okay, cool. Cool, so just looking at the chat, it looks like Ishana and Sindhu. Okay, great. So Ella retracts. So it looks like Ishana and Sindhu want to sit on this. Anyone else before we formally amend? Seeing none, let's formally amend this motion. So the motion will now read, again, we're going to the amended motion. It's going to read, whereas the SFSS is shifting back to full capacity operations in the coming semesters, whereas there is a need to hire 2 new member services assistants to maintain our operations, be it resolved to appoint Sindhu, I might say her last name wrong, Sindhu. Is it Dharmaraja? Dharmaraja? Dharmaraja. I'm sorry if I said it wrong. And Ishana Baran. As employer representatives to the MSAA hiring committee, I will move this amendment. Would anyone like to second it?
VP Finance.
VP Finance seconds. I got it. Awesome. All right. Opening the floor for discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, we'll take the amendment to a vote. I will seek unanimous consent. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, the amendment is carried. And now we go back over to the original motion, or now the amended motion. We all know what it reads. So I'm just going to, again, Seek unanimous consent for that. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, the motion is carried. So Ishana, Sindhu, congrats. You're sitting on the hiring committee. Okay, and let's go over to our final item under new business, which is 8.4 reimbursement of the VP external. Okay, Abby's already put in the chat. That's great.
Sorry, Helen, just to clarify, that's the amendment. I'm going to make an amendment. So sorry, that's not the original motion.
What? Sorry.
Sorry, the motion I put in the chat is an amended version of the motion I'm going to move after. The original motion is higher in the chat.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Sorry, I don't get it.
That'd be helpful, please. Okay. So thank you, Abby. We know what the amended one looks like, but let's just go through the process. Okay, so 8.4 reimbursement of VP external. The motion reads, whereas the government of Canada has an allowance of 61 cents per kilometer, up to 5,000 kilometers for reimbursement for work-related travel. Whereas Ishana has used her own vehicle for the purpose of traveling for SFSS-related activities, be it resolved to reimburse Ishana Baran for X amount of dollars for travel expenses related to SFSS activities from line item 720/20. Would anyone like to move this motion?
VP Finance.
VP Finance moves. Someone to second.
VP External.
VP External seconds. Going to open the floor for discussion. Abby, you have the floor.
So I'm going to amend a couple things. I had a couple typos, so I'm going to change cent to cents.
Mm-hmm.
I changed the wording up a little bit just to make it a little more grammatically pleasing. So I'll read aloud the new motion, and then I'll say specifically where it's been amended. So the new motion would read, whereas the government of Canada has an allowance of up to 61 cents per kilometer to a max of 5,000 kilometers for reimbursement for work-related travel. Whereas Ishana has used her own vehicle for the purpose of traveling for SFSS-related activities, be it resolved to reimburse Ishana Baran $191.11 for travel expenses related to SFSS activities from line item 72020. And I'll move that amendment.
Okay, great. Anyone wish to second this?
VP Internal.
VP Internal seconds. Great. Opening the floor for discussion on the amendment. Abby, you've listed yourself again.
Yeah, I'm just going to explain it, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So I want to clarify this $191.11 is not for any travel between Ishana's home and the sub. That's not covered for anyone. This is specifically to cover the gas for events. So if Ishana is traveling either from home or from the student union building for events and purely for the sake of an event, or if she was going to go visit politicians, again, specifically to discuss SFSS and purely SFSS related activities, those kilometers were covered under here. And then the 61 cents is from a carton I found on the Government of Canada website. It's www.canada.ca, and it's the automobile allowance rate. So I just multiplied the kilometers by 61 cents and got that total. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Any more discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, let's take the amendment to a vote. I'm going to seek unanimous consent. Seek unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, the amendment is carried. So now we're just going to go back to the amended motion. I'll read it out loud so then everyone knows. The motion reads, the amended motion reads, whereas the government of Canada has an allowance up to 61 cents per kilometer to a max of 5,000 kilometers for reimbursement for work-related travel, whereas Ishana has used her own vehicle for the purpose of traveling for SFSS-related activities, be it resolved to reimburse Ishana Baran $191.11 excuse me, for travel expenses related to SFSS activities from line item 720/20. So I don't think we need any more discussion on this motion. It's pretty straightforward and clear cut. So let's just go straight and take this to a vote. I'm going to seek unanimous consent here. Seeking unanimous consent. If you wish to dissent, please do so by using the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing none, this motion is carried. All right, that's the end of new business. And being that I need to leave this meeting soon, oh, Ishana wrote here, I just want to thank Abby for looking into this for me. Gas is expensive. It sure is. So thank you again, Abby, for doing this for Ishana. Thank you, executives, for getting this motion passed for Ishana. Okay, so it is almost 11. Again, I do need to get going on my end of things. So at this point, I'm going to pass all chairing duties over to Abby for the rest of the executive committee meeting. And I'll be leaving soon. So Abby, it's all yours.
Thanks, Helen. Honestly, we just went through what was over a 40-minute presentation, and the motions were actually making really good time. I think at this point we should probably take a 5-minute break, just because I know it's a 40-minute financial presentation, and I know I love stocks and bonds and finances, but the rest of y'all aren't business majors. So some of you, it was either boring or it may have gone over your head, or maybe you loved it as much as I did. Maybe you loved it just as much as I did. I'm making assumptions, but I think 5 minutes would be nice here. So I will see you guys. Let's just round it off here because it's like 10 seconds left on 10:54. I'll see you guys back at 11 o'clock. So see you then. All right, everyone, we are back and we're going to be moving on to discussion items. So 11.1 reads SFSS website, making a calendar for events and links to meetings. And this was submitted by Ishana. So you can go ahead, Ishana.
Thanks, Abby. Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the idea to exec first. I was thinking if we could make a kind of graphic on the SFSS website. So when you click on the website, it'll have a calendar, and on the calendar, it'll show what events we have, links to meetings. Not only council or exec meetings, but also committee meetings, I feel like would be cool. I just wanted to get input with exec and then see if we can talk to Ilham if we're in consensus with it.
Thanks, Ishana. If anyone has any thoughts on that, you can feel free to list in the chat. Abby, go ahead. Thanks, Abby. Yeah, Ishana, I think that's a really cool idea, and certainly worth looking into, especially for the events side. I know yourself, Vaibhav, Nikki, all have been looking to hold cool events within the external UAA and events respectively. So having that on a calendar so people can see more of the what's available so they can kind of match up their schedules for it. That would be cool. Ishani, you have a direct response, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then someone just private messaged me and said that I cut out. So I'll just repeat what I said before. Is that okay, Abby?
Oh, okay. You were fine for me, but please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So what I was saying was just thinking of doing a graphic or something on the SFSS website that has links to meetings, events that we're doing. So when students click on the SFSS website page, they can see what's going on. And also Abby, adding on to what you said as well, I feel like it'll help to make sure we don't conflict in what we do. So if events is doing something or UAA or ECA, we'll know to do things on different days. But yeah, that was just my idea. And then I can also bring this up to Ilham and then bring an update to exec next time as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Ishana. I'm just going to say, I'm going to list here really quick. I for whatever reason, I was thinking a Google calendar, but your idea is a lot better of an actual physical calendar, a graphic. That's a much better idea. Ella, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if we could even do something a little bit more interactive on the website. I don't know what our capabilities are, but yeah, that would be a really awesome idea, I think, as well.
Thanks, Ella. Sindhu, please go ahead. Your first list in an executive meeting. Congratulations.
Yay. And I may be totally off topic or missing something, but isn't that the purpose of the calendar on the website now? Or is this something we want in addition? So I just sent that link in the chat.
Ishana, I don't know if you have a response to that or you want a sec, or if anyone else has anything they want to respond to that with. Ishana, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sindhu. Okay, to be honest, I didn't even know we had this. So probably making it more accessible. And I know that other like societies, like even outside of SFU, like unions have like it like right on the first page. And I think what Ella was saying too about making it more interactive. So making sure students know that we have it. Because also like as an exec, I didn't know. So like making sure students know about it. But thank you for linking that. I didn't even know we had that.
Thank you, Ishana. I'll use my list here to comment and say maybe it's just my end, but it looks empty to me, like there's nothing here at all. So you may just not even be utilizing it. So this could be cool. I kind of had something like this in mind when I was replying to Ishana. So I don't know if we want it interactive like this and then maybe have like a screenshot of it and post it to social media and have communications make a graphic. I'll leave that to you, Ishana, since it sounds like you're the one who wants to liaise with Ilham on that. If you want any help from me or my insights, I'm happy to provide. Just let me know and we can set up a meeting with Ilham together. But yeah, does anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Ishana, please go ahead.
Yeah, Abby, I can definitely set up a meeting between you, myself, and Ilham anytime. So yeah, because I feel like that's a super cool idea. I'd love to have you involved as well.
Awesome, cool, Ishana. I'm looking forward to it. All right, I'll ask one more time if anyone else has anything they wanted to add to this. If not, we'll move on. Holy cow, I did not realize how many discussion items we had. Huh. Okay, all right, we're going to move on to 11.2, SFSS visibility requirements for communications materials submitted by Ishana. Please go ahead, Ishana.
I think this was, so I submitted it on behalf of Aisha. So Aisha, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Aisha, go ahead.
Okay, so sorry, hold on. Can you repeat where we are? I was lost in my inbox.
Yeah, we are at 11.2, SFSS visibility requirements for communications materials.
Yes. Okay, so Ilham had brought this up in a case where a bunch of equity constituency groups had reached out to her to see if it was mandatory for SFSS logos to be put on all of their materials that was going to be on social media or on the website. So Ilham drafted some kind of like a briefing note and shared it with the executive just over a month ago with the recommendation that any kind of SFSS funded event that, like, regardless if it's through a club or through a constituency group, that in best practices, we should have our logo on those marketing materials just for like visibility. And then there was a larger discussion from equity groups saying that if SFSS is not directly funding the their event, but it's being paid for through the levy, that they feel like they should not have to have our logo on it, which makes sense. So there was supposed to be a discussion with the executive to formalize that that recommendation that Ilham brought forward so that it can be actioned moving forward.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. Did anyone want to give their 2 cents on this? Feel free to list in the chat. I'll start, I guess. I have mixed feelings on this because the constituency groups are housed under the SFSS, and they do use our insurance for their events as well, which is a cost to us, right? Insurance costs us money, even if it is insurance as a collective. We are putting money into every event. And again, the levy itself, while students might be paying it, comes via the SFSS. Without the SFSS, there would be no levy. So I would actually be inclined to disagree with you, Aisha. I think the SFSS is paying for this in one way or another. Even if you don't count the levy, we do cover insurance, which is a cost. So I think the SFSS logo should be on all event communications. But I will pass it on to Judith next on the list.
I agree with Abby in regards to that. They're still part of the SFSS. However, I also want to highlight, I remember when this was brought up during a staff meeting like a while ago. I have not seen the briefing note, maybe it got lost in my inbox. So I'm not going to comment much on Ilham's take on it, but I would recommend having the logo on there just because of consistency and stuff.
Thank you, Judith. Aisha, you're next on the list.
Yeah, so I guess I'm putting this on the agenda today to talk about the overall requirement for all other materials. We don't have to talk about the constituency group right now because I think that involves constituency group consultation. But with clubs and other materials like internal events and things like that, I think that would be more appropriate to discuss here without, consultation.
Thanks, Aisha. I'm going to directly respond and say my point would apply even more so than to clubs and DSUs because they get their funding directly from the SFSS or under the SFSS and represent the SFSS even more so. So my point would be, I would repeat it for clubs, and I would give it even more, what's the word? I mean it even more. I don't know what the word for that is. But yeah, anyone else want to have their 2 cents? Please list in the chat. Cindy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard to monitor that, but what we can enforce is if any of the clubs or DSUs promote through us or just even use our calendar or our social media, then we can really ensure that they do use our logo. Obviously, from a branding perspective, it would be ideal to have our groups use our logo. But yeah, enforcing it might be difficult, but if it goes through us for promotion, I think that's a better way of managing it for sure. Just my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Sindhu. Judith, go ahead.
Well, since we're going back towards in-person events as well, and people will probably start postering in person as well. I'm not sure how many folks have been looking around on campus. You will see a lot of posters that is unclear whether that club falls under us, if it's a student-driven thing separately from us, or whether it's just spam. I think it's important for us to have the logos on these kind of advertisements for our groups specifically, so SFU also knows this is an SFSS club, this is a legitimate club we have. So it doesn't come to the point where like maintenance or facilities will take down the posters for our clubs because they don't know if we're a real club or if it's something random. So I think it will just benefit the groups as well just to have that kind of safety net that if our logo is on their event posters, then there's a higher chance of their posters actually staying up.
Thanks, Judith. I think that's a good point. Did anyone else want to relay their thoughts? Please list in the chat. Going once, going twice, sold. Okay, so just throw some concluding thoughts on it. Sounds like we should probably look towards developing some sort of guidelines just so we're not leaving clubs or other groups in the dark on what exactly our policy is and let them know. So not just via a Canvas course, but via email. And if we need to, we can even have people go to meetings and let them know that these are the new requirements. Or if we end up changing the requirements from what they are currently, or whether we just end up letting them know what our current policies are, so they can be better informed and know that going forward for postering and for online advertisements. All right, moving on to 11.3 professional development requests for excluded management submitted by Ishana, but I believe this came from Aisha. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ishana. Ishana?
You can sorry for talking out of order. This can go to Aisha.
Oh, it's yes in the chat. Sorry, Ishan, I didn't see that. My bad. Yeah, go ahead. Aisha.
Ooh, okay. Okay, so the professional development requests, these were things that in the excluded contracts we have entitlements to. I think this was supposed to be, well, actually it doesn't need to be in camera, so it's fine. Anyway, I had submitted a request back in May for project management certification. And
yeah, Aisha, I'd be very careful here. We're starting to get onto HR territory, so please proceed with caution.
Okay, so I just didn't receive a response, so this is me just looking for a response.
Thanks, Aisha. If anyone has an answer off the top of their head, you can feel free to direct respond. Ella, you can go ahead.
Not particularly a direct response, but just something to add to. I had talked about a mental health first aid course. It's actually happening next week, Friday, if I'm correct. This mental health first aid course would specifically include mental health, like a mental health certification that is primarily geared towards youth. From my understanding, that's around 17 to the age of 24. So I wanted to just add in to maybe, instead of potentially talking about HR matters here, we could collaborate a list of these professional development courses that would be really beneficial for excluded management to take, and then follow up with that over email and have a specific amount of time that we would like a response from. The mental health first aid course is next Friday, so ideally we would want some movement on it faster, and have this available to staff as well, unionized staff. But I'll leave that in the hands of exec.
Thanks, Aisha. Let me list, Judith, you have a question mark list, so are you you can go ahead if you wish.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk very carefully with the line here. I don't remember the request, so I saw Aisha said she will forward the email again. Thank you. The other thing is, I'm not sure if it's just me. It could be just me. I don't have access to management contracts, so I don't know what to say to that, but that's kind of something that we don't really have access to, at least on my end. So if someone who has them who can forward it to me, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Judith. Aisha said it was sent to Helen, but they also forwarded it to exec in June. Okay. I'm going to retract my list. Anyone else has? Oh, actually, no. Sorry, I remember what I was going to say. I'll unretract my list. I was going to say, Ella, I agree. Communicating over email is a great way to make sure. Oh, crap. Yeah. We can talk about this without breaking in camera. And I just realized we don't have a quorum. So we can't even go in camera to discuss this, actually, which is quite unfortunate. Shoot. Because we have 2 regrets and LOA, and Helen is gone now. So we only have 3. So we'll be sticking to X-camera discussion items. Okay. So yeah, Ella, we'll have to go with your idea. And thank you, Aisha, for forwarding it. Aisha, you can go ahead.
Sorry, I know you just mentioned that we don't have quorum right now. This is my last exec meeting before my leave, and there are like quite a few urgent items. Is there a way to get Helen back into the meeting so we can get this out of the way?
Yeah, I can call her and ask, but honestly, like it sounds like Helen had to go because she wanted to go at 10:30, but stuck around for new business. So I can call her and ask, but it seems unlikely.
Okay, appreciate the follow-up. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Yeah, the board organizer is asking if Ria can attend. I have no idea. If someone else has a better idea, they can ask. Yeah. Is there anything else specifically on PD that anyone wanted to list on X camera? Oh, sorry, Judith, I missed that. Go ahead.
It's okay. There's a lot of things in the chat. So it's discussion item. There's no motion for it in the first place. I have a couple suggestions. I'm not sure if admin will be on board with it. We could potentially try to call an exec meeting for next week and pass whatever we need to pass for Aisha, because even if we get Helen back in the call, there's no motion for anything. And yeah, I was wondering if that's an option for us, or whether we can just approve something like the email, be like, yes, Aisha can do this. Okay, that's it, via email. I don't know the process for it. Yeah, I don't know if that's a better option, because it sounds like we don't know what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Judith. I'm just gonna directly respond to that. Ella's, I guess this is not a direct response, so I'll just list. Ignore my direct response. Ella, you said in the chat you're on board, so would that mean you're okay with holding like an emergency executive meeting, say next Friday, for example? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's something that we can do internal in admin. I want to just refer to the chat really quick. Ishana said that Ria can join in whenever we go in cam. I don't know how that is going to particularly work with Robert's rules, but that's an option. If not, we can call an emergency exec meeting for next Friday, which would be Aisha's last day, just to get things cleaned up and make sure we have all the motions.
Okay, I would really prefer not to drag someone in on their LOA. As much as I appreciate Ria's willingness to do that, I would prefer the latter route, or the former route, sorry, of holding an exec meeting next Friday. Ishana, you can go ahead.
Yeah, Abby, I'm just going to agree with you. I think it would be good to do it next Friday, just so we can be more prepared on the subject.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. If that's okay, then we can move on to 11.4, unless someone has anything else they want to add to 11.3. And thank you, Ella, for getting the ball rolling. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to 11.4, OT for excluded management submitted by Ishana. Ishana, did you submit this on behalf of someone else?
Yes, I submitted it on behalf of Aisha.
Perfect. Aisha, you have the floor.
Okay, this one's definitely going to need to be discussed in camera, so I won't be able to elaborate any further.
Thank you. I'm just going to move on to 11.5. De-escalation with Ishana, are you okay if we push this off to the next meeting so we can do that in camera? 11.5. Unless you have something specifically X camera you wanted to say that would be okay to say. Ishana, go ahead.
Yeah, I just submitted this on behalf of Aisha as well. So I think, I don't know if it's one part is in camera and one is X camera, but I don't know. But I'm good with pushing it off if it has to be in camera.
Okay, thank you, Ishana. Aisha, I would prefer if we could defer this to the in-camera session for the emergency meeting, if that's okay with you.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, wow. We're going to get through this a lot faster then. 11.6 FIC student bookings. This we can do X camera. Woo! Okay. Submitted by Ishana. Is this on behalf of Aisha as well, or is this yours? Aisha, please go ahead.
Hi, folks. Okay, so this is another one that was brought up by the building team, inquiring if FIC students could make use of the student union building. I didn't see a response, a final response from the executive, or if this has to go to council. So we're just looking for movement on this.
Awesome. Thank you, Aisha. If anyone knows on this, feel free to list or direct respond. I'll just throw my thoughts in real quick. I know FIC does pay us fees for the Build SFU levy, so they should be able to use it. I'm just not sure on their bookings of it. Ishana, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I was looking into this when we were talking about TSSU, and FIC is an affiliated group. So as long as they use the link for affiliated groups for bookings, it should be fine from what I've seen in like the policies. But Judah, if you have anything to add.
There we go. Thanks, Ishana. Judith, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to this very controlledly because there's a couple of things that I don't have access to, like the MOUs and the LOAs. But as long as we probably have an MOU or LOA with FIC, like yes, FIC students can use our spaces, it should be good to go. But until then, I would say defer to just yes, because they do pay into the levy, so it should be fine. But again, I don't have access to the MOUs or LOAs, so I wouldn't know.
Awesome. Thank you, Judith. And just in case for those watching on YouTube who may not know, MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding, and Letter of Agreement, or LOA stands for Letter of Agreement. Did anyone else want to add on to this or have any information? Going once, going twice. Oh, we got two in there right before I said gone. So good job. Ella, you have a direct response. Please go ahead.
I really did. I really tried to get that in before I got to third. Thank you, Abby. So just one thing to add, in the transition, in the Google Drive that all of you got at the beginning of your transition into your roles, I'll be honest, not all of the MOUs and LOAs were up to date, but if you go back and look into it now, I'll send an email out. All of you should have access to all of that information, so you should be able to go and check into it whenever you do have a second.
Thanks, Ella. Ishana, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was also going to say that I can forward what I've seen for like things for the affiliated groups and things like that in our policies. So maybe that'll help out. I can forward that all to exec, and like I can make it easier so we all can see, but I can do that after the meeting.
Thanks, Ishana. I'm just gonna point out, I found something called FIC agreement statement on the Google Drive, downloaded it as a PDF and threw it in the chat if people want to take a quick look. Ella, is this what you were referring to? Please go ahead.
Yes, but also all of the other agreements that we have internally as well. So all of our stakeholders, all of the folks that we have letters of agreements with.
Thanks, Ella. Sorry, I mean specifically for this matter, this is what we would be referring to, yes? If you want to directly respond to that.
Yes, you are correct.
Thank you. So looking at this, it says FIC students should be able to get services from out on campus or women's center, which certainly means they'd be allowed for in the sub building for sure. And point F says the ability to book rooms at SFSS control spaces and get support from us, which is G, in supporting booking rooms in SFU controlled spaces. So yeah, they should be able to do it. They should be allowed. So if there's any barriers to that, we should probably look into that. Did anyone else have something they wanted to say? Caps lock gets a lot of us cheated. It's very relatable. I'll do it one more time if someone wants to beat me to 3. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right. We will move on then to 11.7 FIC student room bookings submitted by Ishana. This was also from Aisha.
I think that was a duplicate from the admin assistant.
Ah, okay. Ishana, do you want to comment on anything on that? Because I think it's pretty much the same. Retract? Okay. All right, then we can go on to 11.8 subspace bookings for executive/council. This was submitted by Ishana. Please go ahead. Aisha, thank you. Aisha, please go ahead.
Subspace bookings for executives and counselors. I'm trying to think what I was referring to about that. Executives.
So let me just clarify. Let me read it out one more time. It was the subspace booking policies specifically for executive/council review.
Oh, yes. Okay. So this, oh man, I think this might need to be discussed in camera because there's context.
Okay. All right. Looks like our emergency meeting might be as long as the regular meeting next one. Cool, cool, cool. All right. We'll move on to 11.9, hours of work LOA survey submitted by Ishana. Is this on behalf of Aisha? Yes, Aisha, please go ahead.
Okay, this one can be discussed ex camera. So so since bargaining, we entered into a letter of agreement with the union that essentially says that we were going to be working on an hours of work trial run, so that the sub would be operating until 11 p.m. for a 1-year period. And we would test and see if that expanded hours of work, like how it was working, if it was useful, if there was justification for us to move into a 24-hour model or like an even more extended model, or to even keep the model that we have currently, which is just a temporary arrangement. So in order to determine the effectiveness, measuring the effectiveness of these extended hours of work, the union and the bargaining committee entered into an agreement that we would survey our membership, our staff, and our stakeholders, like that would be like any of our sub-users, to see how well used our spaces are at what times of the day, and if available and if accessible, how much more folks would want access to the space if they could. And so the agreement was that we would survey those three groups 3 times a year, so once a semester. And so we can actually look at and review the feedback, and it would help us make a more informed decision when we go back to the negotiating table to review this letter of agreement. So the union and management collated a draft set of questions that would be used theoretically to survey those 3 groups. So the union is the one who actually put it all together, but it had input from both sides. So in order to actually get the ball rolling and to actually start surveying the membership, now that the student union building is open, we need to have that survey approved by this executive. And if we need to consult other groups in order to see if that survey is going to be effective, then we need to do that. The reason why it's urgent is because our 1-year letter of agreement expires at the end of September, which is next month. And we haven't done any surveying yet. Thankfully, before the last executive exited, they did enter into an agreement to extend our deadline until the end of the next spring semester. So that would be April 2023. So it does not give us a whole lot of time to send out 3 different surveys. And this has been brought up since June, end of May, beginning of June, and we've had no movement on it from the executive. So we're really looking to see for feedback so we can get back to the union on it.
Awesome, thank you, Aisha. Did anyone have something they wanted to say on this? A question mark list, Judith. If you say use a question mark list, you have to ask a question. So please go. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Judith.
It might actually be a question, because this actually makes a lot more sense now, because I saw the original draft and I saw the word QP and I was like, okay, I'm not a staff liaison. I don't know what this is about. So that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for the context, Aisha. So my question is, how are we doing this into the survey format? Are we looking to do it through job form or web survey, or because both of them have drawbacks? I'm just wondering what format are we rolling this out, if anybody would know?
I do know. So there are two proposals for how to roll it out. One would be that it would be an SFSS managed survey. And the other one would be, so that could be on any of the following that you just listed. It could also be SurveyMonkey or, et cetera. And the other option would be, it would be a CUPE managed survey, which is they have like their own, they have like a whole whackload of money, more than we can ever imagine. So their internal infrastructure would be much more secure. And then we would be able to review those results with them when they are available. So we haven't decided, we haven't made any decisions yet on who was going to be managing the survey. It's just mostly right now talking about the questions, and then soon after that, we'll talk about dissemination.
Okay, thanks, Aisha. And I would just remind members to use the speakers list if you want to respond, or list in the chat. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to say? Going once, going twice, sold. I'll just say quickly then before we wrap up, I agree with Judith. Going the CUPE route is probably my preferred way. And hopefully, Aisha, we can get back to you on those set of questions and make sure they're all good to go and get that going ASAP. Yeah, Judith asked to approve question bank at exec and next week. Aisha, is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay with me. There are quite a few things, so I really hope we're able to pull this next meeting off.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to, oh, sorry, can we double check? No one else wants, actually, no, we already closed the list. We're good. We're going to 11.10, library, excuse me. Laptop library for SFSS submitted by Ishana. Is this on behalf of Aisha? Yes, you already said it. You're already ahead of me. Perfect. Aisha, please go ahead.
Okay, this was a clarifying question. I believe it was approved at the June 3rd meeting or early June meeting, and it was a request that excluded management had made so we could purchase a variety of just a number of laptops for staff on any approved amount that the executive approved, so that some of our staff who work a hybrid model would be able to check them out and then bring them back in when they're returning back in office. So the intention is not for them to have a work laptop at all times. It's just for days that they're working remotely. I had heard that was approved, but I was never told what the budget was that was approved so we could actually purchase them.
Thank you, Aisha. I do not remember off the top of my head. I'm looking through my email. If anyone does remember off the top of their head, that would be spectacular. Judith, please go ahead.
I remember this being submitted as a discussion item. I don't remember a motion coming to exec. I haven't missed an exec meeting, so I don't remember it ever coming to exec, but I remember a discussion item being submitted in June. But I will defer the rest of my list to Ishana.
Yeah, Ishana, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Judith. Thanks, Abby. Yeah, okay. I remember us talking about this, but then we never had a motion come out of it. So maybe we can discuss, like, right now what we would put into a motion, then we can bring it to next exec. But I don't know if that's something, because I remember we did agree that it would be, we can also look back, but we didn't like formally vote on anything, but we were like, oh, like laptops would be something that maybe we can look into, or like we can think of a motion. I don't know if I'm remembering wrong though.
I'm going to directly respond to Ishana, or maybe it's just been a list, but yeah, I think you're right. I don't recall a motion actually being passed, but I do remember it being discussed. So if we want to figure out exactly how we want to go about this, we can, again, thank goodness for this emergency meeting, look at putting that as a new business item for, or maybe even old business since it has been discussed on the next agenda. Does anyone have any comments on exactly how it would need to be laid out? I'd be looking specifically towards, oh, Ishan, actually, you go ahead. Yes, please.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Aisha, could you give us some details on it? And then one of the execs, even I can just make a motion for the next exec meeting for this.
Perfect. I can find the original email and send it over, and I can also include a proposed amount. I believe I had originally proposed 5,000 because anything over 5,000 would have to go to council, and we just needed something in the interim to see how it was working. So I can find that original email and re-forward it.
Anyone else wants to comment, feel free to use the speakers list. Nope. Okay. We're going to move on to 11.1 external office projects. Ishana, this is submitted by you.
Yes.
You're speaking to it? Yes, perfect. Yay. Now you finally get to speak on your own item. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I spoke out of order before. Yeah, so basically, I just wanted to update execs on what's going on in the external office and like give an opportunity if folks want to get involved or if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah, so something that I've been working on and I've looped in Helen on this is an event with TransLink. So I initially, because students have reached out to me and they've like asked about like transit options, like making it better. So I was like, okay, let's look into this. This was specifically from students in Maple Ridge too, because they have a tough time getting up to SFU. So then I attended the TransLink roundtable in Maple Ridge, and then I connected with the person who did the presentation there. And then I got Gabe, my AVP, to like look into it. And then I started talking to TransLink, and then they were basically like, hey, let's do a roundtable at the SFSS, and let's also do like a day of event type of thing. So so what TransLink wants to do is that they want to like bring a bus to SFU. It's kind of like a party bus. They have like different themes. They have like pride, things like that, like different buses that they can bring. And I've talked to John about this, and we think that we can probably get one bus. You know, where on the first floor, there's that like one exit, and there's like the little road out there. Oh my gosh, sorry. I don't know if you heard that. But basically, it seems like a cool event. So I wanted to know if execs wanted to like get involved in it. So basically look like this. So students can go around the bus. TransLink will do like a giveaway. They'll be on campus. And then for an hour, the CEO of TransLink will come to the SFSS, do a presentation. So we're going to talk about the gondola, what transit options are coming for students. And then it'll also be a kind of Q&A session and also recommendations that students can give to TransLink on how to make transit options better. Are there any questions on this point of it, or if people want to get involved, let me know. And then I have 2 more things to talk about.
Awesome. Thank you, Ishana. I will say your stuff with TransLink sounds awesome. And I also really appreciate you like really following Robert's rules here. Really appreciate that. Makes the meeting a lot easier for me to chair. So thank you, Ishana. You've been making an extra effort this meeting, I know, because you've been listing a lot and you have a bunch of items. So shout out to you for that. If anyone else has any questions for Ishana on that specifically, you can list. If not, Ishana, you can list again, and you can go ahead on your other stuff for the external. Ishana, go ahead. Retract. Judith, go ahead.
Yeah, this sounds cool, especially because I know some of the counselors and myself, we have a special bond over complaining about how long it takes for us to get from Maple Ridge to campus. I know some of us, for me, it takes 2.5 hours, sometimes 3. And then I know for a couple other counselors, it takes around the same amount, like 2 hours to 1.5 hours, depending on how close you live to Haney. So yeah, it is a process. It is an event, honestly, to get from Maple Ridge to Burnaby. So this sounds really cool. Good job, Ishana. Sounds like a really cool project.
Ishana, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Drew. I appreciate that. Yeah, and then I can just do updates on like 2 more things. So basically, I also want to do a gondola celebration. So what happened was I first sent out invites to SFU because I know that their schedules are a bit like harder to coordinate, and I wanted to do it in August. It ended up that we have chosen September 13th as a date. So basically for that, what we're going to do is I kind of confirm plans with staff, and what we want to do is we want to have it on September 13th, and we're going to like have it at the social stage, and we're literally just going to have like little 5-minute speeches from SFU. I know Joy Johnson is going to speak, some alumni. I've invited a lot of alumni, and also Abby, I know the last time I talked about this, you talked about inviting Colin Fowler, and I have invited him. And then so what's going to happen is we're going to have, I wanted to make it like a hybrid event, but then it turned in that would make it more of a meeting type of thing. So then I was talking to staff and they're like, hey, why don't we just do a live stream of the event? So alumni who may not be able to come can still like watch the event. So that's what we're kind of going to do and make it more of a celebration. I was talking to event staff as well, and they were talking about, oh, we can like hand out little finger foods to students. I'm also going to look for, because this campaign started 10 years ago. So I'm talking to, I've been trying to like look for like old posters that we've had. I also contacted SFU to see what materials they've had and they used for this campaign. So that's pretty exciting. And execs, I'm going to send off invitations to like staff and exec as well. But just so you know, that's happening. Also Ella, acknowledging what you put in the chat. I will. Okay, I'll do that. I'm putting that in my notes to contact folks from SFU Athletics. Thank you. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up was that the water drive, I've been working on it a lot with the external office and it went super well. So we handed out about, I think it was about like over 100 bottles of water to the unhoused community. And it was super great because I literally put out the call for volunteers a couple days before, and I got volunteers out from general membership, and it was super great to hear from membership. And I also talked about like the SFSS a bit with them, and it was super great to connect. I know a counselor was also there, so I was really appreciative of them coming out. And then we're hoping maybe to go again next week. I'm kind of figuring out, it's supposed to be hot. I'm still figuring that out. So I'll send an email to exec if I figure it out for next week if we go again. I don't know if we'll do the downtown, central again or not, but we'll see. But that's just updates on my end. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, thank you again, Ella, for putting in SFU Athletics. I will be sending out invites.
Thank you, Ishana. Did anyone else have any questions for Ishana on the second half of what she said? Or any comments, anything like that, aside from just giving Ishana congrats on all the good work she's done so far? Nothing, going once, twice, sold. All right, we are to our last X-Camera discussion item. It's titled Need for Facilitated Collaborative Sessions to Refocus on Society Advocacy. This was submitted by Ishana. Please go ahead, Ishana.
Yeah, thank you, Abby. I just wanted to submit this because I know that there is like, I know we talked about like tension, and then we talked about like safety as well within like the SFSS, like executive, and just like overall, like how we're feeling. So I was wondering if we could like use, I don't know like where this would come out of, but like someone to come in and like help us with like becoming like more collaborative. So I don't know if this would be a thing like only for exec or with council as well, but I don't know if other people have thoughts on this. But just so we can like look into focusing on projects more and just like working together more as well.
Thank you, Ishana. Yeah, if anyone wants to list, you can go ahead. I'll wait. Anyone else has any thoughts? If not, okay. I'll list then. I'll just say from my role, thanks for bringing this up, Ishana. From my role, my main, oh my God, okay. My brain's not working. I'm gonna retract. Anyone else would like to list, please go ahead. Judith, please go ahead. I'm
gonna accidentally, hopefully, maybe speak for Abby because I think I know where he was going from his sentence of my role. Cause that's kind of what I was thinking too. Our roles are boring there. It's pretty obvious. VP Finance, VP Internal, these roles are extremely boring. Like there's very little that we can do that's actually nice, and it's kind of annoying for us because majority of it is just such admin heavy related that it's not even funny. I know there were things I wanted to do, and then I was promptly told we don't have the money for it. So I have nothing really against it. It's just there's very little we can do that we want to do because we don't have the money for it, or it's a project that would take a multi-year process, and I will certainly not be here for multi-years. I am still running for the hills in spring. But yeah, that's all I had to say. I think that's where Abby was going with it, but I'm not sure.
Thank you, Judith. I kind of remember what I wanted to talk about. That's a part of it. I was going to say my role it's very much admin focused, but in terms of if any projects you have, like the water drive, for example, that I can support financially, that would you need money outside of the regular line items, particularly if it's just a little bit, I can certainly look for ways to shift the budget around to help you out. Or if you need, like, looking for donations and stuff, like a smaller amount that I can just handle personally out of my own pocket, I could potentially help you out there as well. The other issue is everyone's obviously very busy, which makes it hard to come out to your events. I wanted to come out to both your water drive and your freezy thing, and I was unable to on the second day and on for the water drive. So my apologies for that. But Ishana, please go ahead.
Yeah, no worries at all. Yeah, I'm just talking about like how and because I totally get that we're all busy and it's like admin focused, but just like collaborating more, like in general, like just on like different projects, like not even like projects, but just so we're like more in the loop on things. But that's what I wanted to like bring up. But thanks for like your 2 cents, student and Abby, on this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ishan. I'll list. Yes, no, I absolutely agree with that. Sorry, my brain's foggy. Yes, I'm with you. It's always good to be in the loop, because then if I have any resources I can share with you, or if any other exec has any resources they can share with you for your advocacy efforts, we can double down and help you have the effect you wish to have. My God, the brain's not working today. Pardon me. If anyone else has any comments, feel free to list. I'll give it 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, so that is it for all the discussion items. I'll double check the amendments to make sure we didn't have any amended on, but I think we only had the presentations on the new business items. Can't go in camera, can't pass any motions right now, so all we can do now is adjourn. So I'm gonna move to adjournment. Be it resolved to adjourn this meeting at 11:51 a.m. Can I get a mover? I think Ishana,
yeah,
yes. Perfect, thank you. And can I get a seconder?
VP Internal.
VP Internal seconds. Any discussion? Anybody want to just sit here and like do nothing? No? Okay. All right, I'll seek unanimous consent on this. If you wish to dissent, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom and I'll call on you for your vote. Okay, that passes. Thanks, everyone. So we'll be having our emergency exec meeting next week, and I will see you then.